My name's Pete Woods, you're watching Hexham TV. Who are you?
Thanks, Pete. I'm Joe Morris. I'm the new MP for Hexham. I'm the first ever Labour MP for Hexham.
Well, Joe, congratulations on being the first Labour MP in the Hexham Constituency.
Thanks very much. It's been incredible. It's a huge honour. It has been fantastic to get out and speak to so many organisations, so many constituents, both across the election and afterwards, and to hear from them about the kind of society they want to see, about the kind of issues they want to see prioritised, because we had the Tories for 100 years here, and I think they took the constituency for granted. It's been great for me to go into Parliament, to lead debates in Parliament on issues like rural banking access, on issues like the future of our sheep farming communities, which really cut to the heart of this community and cut to the heart of, in many cases, why I was elected.
So the Labour Party have been in power for a number of weeks, a short time. What have they achieved?
Already we've ended the strikes that were crippling our economy, that the Tories had allowed to run rampant. We've brought forward measures to bring our railways under public control. We've started to equalise the playing field between landlord and tenant. These are all things which will have huge impacts on people's day-to-day lives. We've also started to bring about the work of change. We've started to fix the public finances. We've started to bring in the Budget Responsibility Act. You know, these are all measures that will ensure that we can never see another Liz Truss budget again. The kind of budget that put hundreds of pounds onto people's mortgage repayments, the kind of budget that, sent the public finances into uncertainty. So we've achieved a significant amount in quite a short space of time, and I know that the Cabinet, under Keir and under Ed and Rachel and Bridget and Wes and all the fantastic ministers and Secretaries of State that we've got, are working at pace to deliver on the promises that we made during the election.
So you mentioned a couple of issues there that you've been involved in. What other things have you been involved in the few weeks that you've been in Parliament?
So I've asked questions to the Secretary of State for Education. I've secured a ministerial meeting on particularly access to SEND provision in rural Northumberland, something that has come up time and time again, whether it was on the doorstep or in my constituency mailbag. I've already met with local businesses, I've met with farmers, I've met with individual constituents at surgeries. I've asked my first question to the Prime Minister on working to make sure that Ukraine remains free and safe, as I know that's something that really concerns me and concerns a lot of people across this constituency and in this country. And I've spoken up in debates in Westminster Hall on the depopulation of our rural areas, something that, again, speaking to people and speaking to constituents who are concerned that young people are having to leave this area in order to pursue the life that they want to lead.
So far you've held surgeries in Throckley and Prudhoe. What sort of issues have come up from the constituents in the Hexham constituency?
So first of all, having surgeries is one of the greatest privileges of doing this job. It's meeting with people individually and talking about how we can help them. And it's one of the best parts of doing the job for me, is being able to get people resolutions to their cases. The issues are many and varied. We're talking about access to SEND provision for families. We're talking about issues accessing the support that people are entitled to. We're talking about concerns that people have got on local events and just trying to make sure that local events can happen. Trying to give access where we can to that. Also trying to make sure that people just feel like they're having their voices heard. Some people have come to my constituencies to my constituency surgeries to talk about some of the difficult issues and to talk about some of the questions they didn't get to ask me during the election campaign. These are all things that are really important, but the SEND provision one is something that we already took. We took from the surgeries, took down to Westminster, and I'm delighted that we've got a meeting with the Minister to pursue these. I've always been very honest with people that I don't have a magic wand, that we can't work miracles in terms of getting things turned around overnight, but myself and my team, when we get a case, we do work on it. As the newly elected MP, we have been setting up the office, been hiring a team, looking for premises. These are all things that don't happen overnight, and I can only promise that we will get more effective as the weeks and months go on.
And presumably, if people want to contact you and they haven't been able to through a surgery, they'll be able to do that through your email.
Yeah, and we are looking at getting a calendar of surgeries up and accessible as quickly as we can. We just need to make sure that we're in a position to fully staff them and make sure that they're as accessible as possible.
The Labour Party conference is this weekend. What do you hope to hear from the Labour Party leadership?
This is a government that's committed to honesty, committed to transparency, and is committed to the change that we promised at the election. So we'll hear more details of the change that we plan on bringing about to the country, more details on how we're going to decarbonise our economy, how we're going to get our economy growing again, and how we're going to deliver on the additional support for education that's needed, on the additional support for our NHS that's needed, because it's really important to remember that the inheritance that we've been left with is one that's truly catastrophic. And I think it's important that the Conservatives need to, at their own conference, really look at themselves and look at the state they handed the country over in, because it's something that no political party should be able to be proud of, is what the Conservatives have left us with.
Now we're in quite a sort of unique position where we've got a Labour MP in the constituency, we've got a Labour Police and Crime Commissioner, and we've got a Labour North East Mayor. How have you been working with the Police and Crime Commissioner and the North East Mayor to bring to their attention issues that are important to the constituents in Hexham?
So we've been in constant contact with the Police and Crime Commissioner, with the North East Mayor, in constant contact with my colleagues who are fellow North East MPs, and in constant contact with MPs for constituencies that are similar to Hexham in areas all across the country. So I've been speaking up in, whether it's parliamentary party meetings, I've been speaking up in question time to make sure that people know that Labour did not win this constituency by accident, that we won this constituency because there was a real need for and desire for change, and a desire to not be taken for granted by the Conservatives. And you know, I've been out door knocking since I was elected, speaking to people out in Long Horsley and out in Hepscott and out in Prudder, to speak about the kind of change they want to see. And those are exactly the kind of conversations that I reflect in when I'm speaking to, whether it's the North East Mayor, whether it's the Police and Crime Commissioner, or whether it's ministerial colleagues in government.
If there's one thing that you would like to achieve as the Hexham MP in the next 6 months or so, what would that be?
I said throughout the election that I want to be the most open and accessible MP I can possibly be. So in the next 6 months, I want to be true to that promise. I want to make sure that our surgeries are as regular and as accessible as they can be, and that we're constantly looking for new ways to engage with and to inform constituents.
Now, you voted to means test on the pensioners' winter fuel benefits scheme, so that some pensioners on very low budgets will now be ineligible for the winter fuel benefit. Now, it's important to say that when the Conservatives were in power, they cut £20 a week universal credit uplift from some of the poorest in society as well, and that amounted to £1,040 over a year. But many people who voted for you, Joe, will say that they don't want a Tory light in government or as an MP. Why did you vote to cut the winter fuel benefits payments to some pensioners on very low benefit?
So I voted to means test it. It was not an inheritance that we wanted. It was a black hole that was revealed only after we won the election. You know, we did not go into we went into government knowing that we faced the worst economic inheritance since the Second World War. The fact that it was worse than we anticipated, I think frankly shows the scale of the challenge. Now, we always pledged we'd be honest with people. We always pledged that we would front up and we wouldn't try and obscure things from the public. Ultimately, we have to take difficult decisions, that's being in government. Now, I don't think it's Tory light to means test in order to make sure that we can target the money that is needed where it needs to be. You know, this government's already doubled the amount of pension credit applications that we've seen. We're working at pace to try and bring forward moves to combine housing benefit and pension credit. It was not an easy vote to cast, it was not an easy decision to make. I know it was not an easy decision for the government to make. But ultimately, whether it's through extending the Household Support Fund, whether it's through establishing Great British Energy to bring everyone's energy bills down, or whether it's through how we get our public services working again, these are all things that will reduce the cost of living for everyone. and that will bring the cost of living down, particularly for pensioners, by the end of this Parliament. You know, this is a government that's committed to the triple lock that the Conservatives broke in government, and it's something that I think most pensioners would rather have seen the triple lock remain than see the winter fuel payment remain. Now, government is about tough decisions, it's about being honest with the public. The last government, frankly, were not honest with the public, and it's important that we start in that way of putting honesty at the heart of everything that we do. I don't think it's Tory light to have made a difficult decision. I don't expect to be popular all the time. I don't expect to get an easy ride, but rest assured that this government is working as hard as we can to get the economy growing, to support the public services we need, and to put an end to the kind of chaos that we saw under the Tories. Now we're only, 10, 11 weeks into a Labour government? Things don't happen overnight. Change doesn't happen overnight. But this government is working as hard as we possibly can, and colleagues are working as hard as we possibly can to make sure that this government delivers for ordinary people, and it will.
I'm just going to come back to at you a little bit on that, Joe. Shouldn't it be those who have the most money, who are the most well off, who bear the brunt of any sort of additional payments that are needed to get the country out of this hole that we're in?
We always need to look at future revenue raises. We always need to look at how we can make sure that those with the broadest shoulders do bear the heaviest burden. I can't comment on what will be in the budget, but we need to fill that £22 billion black hole in year. That means some really difficult decisions. Now, this was a black hole that was hidden from the Office for Budget Responsibility, that was hidden from the public, that was hidden from policymakers. Now, it's not going to be an easy thing to fix, but it's essential to the financial stability and to the economic stability of the United Kingdom that we do it, and it will lead to a more stable economy, to better public services in the long term. So when you're looking at filling these financial black holes that we've been left, it does necessitate really tough decisions. And absolutely, we want to make sure that those with the broadest shoulders do bear the heaviest burdens, but we had to make some tough decisions in year to save that, to find that money to save it, because the alternative was more Tory chaos, and that's what we came to office to do, was to stop the Conservative chaos.
Finally, Joe, what's most surprised you about becoming an MP?
I think what surprised me the most is, to be honest, it's that feeling of being in a surgery and being able to help someone. You know, you think about it, you want to do it, you spend months campaigning for the privilege of doing it, and then there is no feeling quite like you and your team being able to solve a complex bit of casework that's been eating away at someone for weeks, months, or years. You know, that's been the biggest honour so far. You know, raising and looking at how I can raise constituent cases in the chamber to drive better outcomes is something that's, you know, never going to get old. And whenever whether I'm working in the constituency or I'm going down to London, it's absolutely the most important thing to me is serving the constituency as much as I possibly can, and making sure that that privilege is never going to be something that goes stale or gets old. It's something that feels fantastic every day and every time we're able to do it.
Joe Morris, Hexham MP, thank you very much for talking to Hexham TV.
Thank you very much for having me.